Well, as I was walking in the studio just now, there are televisions, of course, outside the studio, and they had the running live stream coverage of President Trump. He's over in England, and there's a state dinner, and the Queen is speaking. So what I want to talk about today in this first five is all the drama behind the scenes in London and really what it means politically. To start with, you likely heard that the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has been shooting out tweets and other kind of pestiferous or critical things toward President Trump, and that President Trump responded today in a tweet where he more or less made fun of the mayor of London's height. And he said, you know, he's just about as a mayor as de Blasio, only he's shorter, or something like that. But I want to talk about the serious context or background in this seemingly kind of petty exchange between London's mayor, Sadiq Khan, and President Trump. To start with, you may recall last time President Trump visited England that the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, actually authorized, and it happened, put a balloon in the air, like one of those big blimp things, a caricature of President Trump wearing a diaper. That was what the professional and highly respectable London mayor did. He did it again this time because he or his constituents were able to raise £50,000 to pay for it. They have this plan again to launch a balloon in the air. So as President Trump state visit to England, speaking with, I'm sure, Theresa May, members of Parliament, the Queen, the royal family, will have in the air the backdrop behind him, this petulant, childish balloon blimp featuring him, a depiction of President Trump in a diaper. On top of that, what was occurring in London has occurred under the mayorship of Sadiq Khan, who is Muslim, is a rise in terrorist attacks against innocent people. In London, we have, as you heard in the show, if you happen to listen on March 28th, you can go back and listen again. We had Katie Hopkins on the show describing neighborhoods in London and outside of London that have been completely overtaken by Islamic immigrants and created what they call no-go zones. Nobody's welcome there except other people, other Muslims, and in fact, in those areas, the Muslim majority claims that the laws of England don't apply. They apply their own law, Sharia. So under Sadiq Khan, there's been a growth in terrorism. London is frequently counted as the stabbing capital of the world, meaning complete strangers being stabbed to death in the streets by others. This coming after the ISIS and other Islamic terror organizations urged their followers around the world to continue the jihad, to continue the attack on innocent people around the world, saying, if you can't find guns, if you can't find weapons, if you can't find bombs, use cars, use knives. So those people, those attacks in London are happening under this mayor who it appears to many is at least legitimizing, permitting, tolerating this conduct on the part of Islamic citizens in London. And there was actually kind of a controversy recently. I'm not a big Monty Python fan, but the Monty Python kind of star of the show, John Cleese, had a tweet out recently essentially saying London doesn't look like London anymore. He said London is no longer an English city anymore due to migrants. And he got a lot of criticism, the typical left-wing criticism, oh, you just don't like people who don't look like you, you're talking about brown skin. And he's still defending himself. He said, no, I'm not. I'm talking about the culture of England, the culture of the city. It used to be friendly, used to be engaging. We didn't have all this violence. We didn't have, Islamic immigrants driving cars into crowds of people in the streets, killing people in the streets. We didn't have this before. He's really talking about the culture of England, and he has not backed down despite being criticized. And that's what I want to get to when I'm talking about in this first five today, the heart of the issue between the representation, what President Trump is going over to England, representing America, and what Sadiq Khan is standing for. One more thing before I get to that. Sadiq Khan and his followers have talked about they're going to have a protest tomorrow. They plan on having a protest in Trafalgar Square. They're hoping for over 100,000 people or something like that to protest against President Trump. But I want to read you what the protesters say, why they are against President Trump. They are saying, this is the Stop Trump Coalition headed up by Mohammed Atiq. Mohammed Atiq says, as the head of the Stop Trump Coalition, the UK should be turning its back on Trump's harmful and divisive politics and not honoring his agenda with a state visit. We should be standing up to normalizing a racist, misogynist, Islamophobic leader who is a climate crisis denier. Let me just translate in plain English. Sadiq Khan and the people protesting President Trump are just left-wingers. They label anyone who dares to point out the problems created in England and London and around Western Europe due in large part to the conduct of Islamic refugees flooding those areas. The protesters are angry because someone's pointing out that that's happening. The protesters are angry because Trump and others, for example, Trump in America, has been saying we have to be really careful here. We have to vet who's coming here. We can't be inviting people who believe in jihad, who believe they have an obligation under Islam to commit jihad. We have to vet them to understand what they believe in and what they think. This, my friends, was a large factor behind the massive turnout in support for Brexit in England. Both the original Brexit vote, which is now, I've lost track of time, 2 years ago maybe, whenever it was, and the most current battle in England, where we just had, like 2 weeks ago, there were the elections, not only in the UK, but throughout Western Europe, for representatives to the European Parliament. The overwhelming majority, the winner, the headline maker, was the growth of the Brexit Party in England. People in England rejecting left-wing politics. People in England and other European countries trying to pull their country back, reclaim their country, wanting to stop the violence committed by the refugees, stop the legitimization of the violence committed by the refugees, stop the socialist mindset that heads up EU, that is the American left's mindset too. This mindset that wanted Brexit, want to pull the United Kingdom out of the European Union, is a mindset that says we want our country back. We want to be in control of our culture. We want our values. It is not about race, my friends. This is what the left always does in America and around the world. They take the legitimate concern expressed by the average person and looking at the violence that has occurred in England and in Western Europe at the hands of the Islamic refugees moving into those areas in the last decade or more. The people, the natives of those countries, are not saying we don't like people who don't look like us. They're not saying we discriminate against people because of the color of their skin. They're saying we want our culture of civility, of Western civilization, of rule of law, of the notion that nobody gets to have a no-go zone, nobody gets to decide what kind of laws apply in their particular community. They want their sense of country and culture back. This is why Brexit prevailed in the original vote. This is why the Brexit Party in the United Kingdom is also prevailing, why they had such a massive turnout in the most recent election cycle, because people in England want what Donald Trump is talking about. They want the Trump idea of rejection of socialism, the return to the notion of the respect for the cultural heritage of various countries, the Western civilization, freedom-based, not socialist culture. People in England want what Trump is offering, and this is why Sadiq Khan is so bothered, because Donald Trump's message, now they may get, Sadiq Khan and his protesters, they may get a big crowd at Trafalgar tomorrow or whenever it's supposed to be, but it's not going to make any difference. Because the people in England are finally fed up and tired of being told by the leftists, same mindset as the leftists in America, the leftists in England, tired of being told by the media, tired of being told by the elected officials, tired of being told by the ruling elite class that you just have to simply put up with whatever destruction is happening to your country and your culture, that you just have to put up with it, that you shouldn't speak up. The British people spoke up and they voted for Brexit. They spoke back in 2 years ago when they voted to remove the UK from the European Union. They spoke up again in the most recent elections. And even if the mayor and the left-wingers get a big protest at Trafalgar Square, the simple fact is the elections in England tell you the story of where the mindset is of the English people. They want what the kind of ideas and energy and clarity that President Trump is bringing. Now, if I were his advisor, probably would have said, nah, I wouldn't put out that tweet about, how tall or not the mayor of London is. That probably, wasn't the most insightful observation. But the concept, when you hear people in America, the left-wing media complaining and, oh, look what Trump said now. He's so embarrassing. I can't believe he made fun of the mayor of London, how tall he is. Unless those people, unless the critics of Trump are also equally, vociferously, and repeatedly and loudly criticizing the mayor of London, criticizing him for authorizing a balloon in the sky with Trump in a diaper, unless they're criticizing his tolerance for Islamic violence, unless they are criticizing his willingness after Islamic violence happens to blame the culture of the country, to blame England, to blame the people, instead of blaming the people who engaged in the wrongdoing. If the critics of Trump aren't equally criticizing Khan and the leftists and the ruling elite class in England who will not listen to the people, who will not carry out the Brexit vote that they made, then they should have no right. They have no right to be heard by you or anyone in their criticism of President Trump. Trump is that spirit of just saying, I'm not letting this London mayor mock me, and put up with it in silence. He had a lot of other things he could have said, but his concept of we're not going to let the criticisms by this London mayor who has created London, the stabbing capital of the world, filled with no-go zones, filled with the Islamic terror and terrorist events, not able to get the situation under control. This guy has been harmful to his country and to his city. And lots of people throughout the United Kingdom know it, even if it happens that the majority of London residents chose to elect this guy mayor and may still back him. The truth is, Trump is on the right side of history. He's on the right side of the messaging that says we need a return to law and order, to civility, and to England. Trump has backed them from the start on Brexit, encouraging the UK to get out of the European Union, urging them to recognize it's okay to love your country. It's okay to stand up for your country. Very similar to his messages here in America. It's okay to say America first. And that, my friends, is today's First Five.